Hello, this is Carol in Chicago.
Hi, Carol. This is Hassan.
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And you?
I'm good too.
So what's your how's Chicago?
Oh, today is like summer. They say it's going to get to 78. I came into the office at about 10 this morning and it was already 72 and sunny. But then we're going to lose 20 degrees or 15 or so degrees, I guess, for the next couple days. And it won't be warm again until maybe part of the weekend.
Oh wow.
So yesterday was about maybe 68 or so. So it was also a very nice spring-like day. But today is definitely an outlier for this time of year. Where are you located?
Detroit.
How's your weather?
It is it's probably low 70s today. We had rain. It was raining and cold all of last week, and then yesterday the weather just cleared up. The sun was out, and it was just a beautiful day.
Ah, marvelous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I guess we'll wait a few minutes and see if anyone else joins before we dive in.
Yeah.
So what have you been working on?
Well, for the group, the only thing I had a chance to get involved in was the job description initiative with Beth Simmer.
Yep.
I think that was for this group. I'm in a couple goal groups, and sometimes I get them messed up in my head about what's for what. But I think the job description was with Beth. So even though I've been coming to these calls now since the end of the summer, I was just sort of trying to get oriented to what was going on. But in terms of my real life, I'm the founder of the Illinois Incubator Association, which is kind of in a launch mode and I think might be in a pivot mode because we have a new governor who's got a whole bunch of different ideas from our past governor. And so I kind of put the launch energy on pause for a bit until I can watch some dust settle, see who the governor hires in a couple of key roles, and see then if we want to redefine ourselves because we are so new that this would be a great time to just kind of relaunch, maybe with a slightly different identity, if that's what we decide makes some sense.
Sure. And since this is a sustainability call, are you are you publicly funded or not at all?
Not at all. Nope. We're just going to be membership, and I've had sponsors knocking on the door ever since last summer saying, when you guys going to be open for business? We really want to sell stuff to your startups. And so we've had a web page posted since early winter that kind of describes how they can get in the game. But because I've been in this pause mode, I haven't taken any money yet. But the Illinois, we've got about 200 incubators and accelerators and co-working spaces and well over 5,000 startups. And there are just a whole bunch of sponsors who want to sell stuff to those startups. So that's where we've created the sponsor levels. So once we get going, and I'm clear that our definition, is the right one, and we're on solid footing about what our identity is, and how we're going to interface with the governor's operation, or whether we are going to become, in effect, the governor's operation that he'll have us as a contractor. It's just not clear. So I'm expecting we'll have sponsor revenues no matter what down the road. The member revenues may go away if the governor's office decides they'd like to just pay us so they don't have to build something similar themselves.
Great. So let's say that we've got one other person on the call with us. I'm not sure who that is. Who's the 202 area code?
Hey, Sean, it's Avery.
I'm sorry, who is this?
It's Avery Kent.
Hey, Avery, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Are you in DC or?
No, that's just my phone number from back when I was an undergrad.
Oh, cool.
I'm on the sense of this.
Great. So Cecilia is actually traveling. So I'm leading this call on her behalf, and Christine is recording the call for the benefit of those who couldn't join the call. So it's you, Avery, it's myself, and Carol from Chicago on the
Hi,
call.
Avery. How you doing?
Doing much better. Was kind of out with the flu last week, but finally healed up and doing well.
Cool. Well, glad you're feeling better, Avery. Listen, so Cecilia left us actually with a question to kick things off. And I know Cecilia likes to start the calls with a word or a question. So the question is, what does sustainability mean to you? So whoever wants to take that first.
Well, I guess I'll take a stab at it. For me, it just, ongoing operations that kind of build and ride on their own momentum. Just
Hi, Beth.
I'd agree with that, and I'd add to it that one of the pain points I feel is that there's not a proven or known or existing business model to follow, and so it feels like they're having to reinvent something, every time just to figure out basic operations. And so to me, sustainability in this context of being an ecosystem builder is having a known model to follow. And, being able to just, like you said, kind of like build off the momentum of your programming, but not having to reinvent exactly how you go charging people money over and over again would be huge.
So Beth, we're kicking things off. Cecilia left us with a question. What does sustainability mean to you?
Oh, wow. Just hearing the last probably 30 seconds of your conversation, I tend to agree that, there's several different models of ecosystem builder. Sustainability means to me is that the field is legitimized and it's appreciated and accepted by the economic development field, and communities without an ecosystem building function in their economic development strategy are behind. That's all I got at this point.
I think actually that was great. I think the only thing I could add to that would be just on a personal level as practitioners, and I know we've talked about this on other calls and at TomTom, but self-care, because if the people that are leading this field, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then nothing else happens. So like self-care on a personal level and self-care on a field level. So I think what I'd like to do is just kind of give an update on where we're at, and then we can start the conversation. So the summit is May 21st through 23rd, and this will be the third phase of ESHIP. The first phase between the first summit and last year's summit was Discover, and then between last year's summit and this coming one, it was the design phase, which is what we've all been working on. And then at the summit in May, between the summit in May and next year will be the deliver phase, which is basically launching prototypes, testing solutions, growing buy-in and strengthening collaboration. And there was, and I'm sure a lot of this is probably repeat information for people who are on Slack and on other calls, but there was a new template developed, a brief version of the original template, which we're calling the brief template. So there have been some updates to the existing project briefs that have been put into the brief templates. So that's kind of where we're at on the initiatives. So for this goal, there are 6 initiatives under this goal, and I'm going to read them off actually because I don't have them memorized. But the first one is the identify sustainable funding models for ecosystem building. Next one is ecosystem builder job board and job description catalog. 7.3 is ecosystem building training and certification. 7.4 is entrepreneur-led economic development certification. 7.5 is peer support networks, and 7.6 is ecosystem building book list. Does everyone have access to those? Does everyone have access to the dashboard?
I'm on the road right now, so I can't look at a computer. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, do you have access to them? Avery and Beth, I know you for sure. You dashboard.
Oh yeah, I have access in general.
Okay. And Carol, do you have access to those through the dashboard?
Yeah, I've been to Christine's dashboard a couple of times. So, and not in the last week or 10, but before then, sure. Yeah.
Cool. So I know there were some updates. I know Beth and I believe it was Carol worked on a job description. So that kind of would fall. I'm not sure if that was for this initiative, but it is 7.2. The job description is 7.2. Beth, if you have anything that you want to fill the group in on that.
Sure. I shared, and if anybody on the call hasn't gotten the shared document, I'm happy to share it, but it was an ecosystem builder's job description from a systemic perspective. There are several other versions of ecosystem builder positions that I am not best equipped, I think, to write up a job description for. So that's where I was coming from, the systemic point of view. We could get a few more before the summit. I think that would be helpful. I don't know if we're going to do a brief on the job description catalog, and I can't remember the exact wording of that initiative, but that would probably be something good for somebody to work on. Again, I don't know that I'm best equipped, but if we have some ideas, happy to jump on a call with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 other people and see if we can get that hammered out pretty quickly.
So you're talking about the job description catalog then?
Yeah, doesn't it say something else there? I'm not looking at
It's ecosystem builder job board and job description catalog, a job board for open ecosystem building positions, and a job description catalog is how it's worded.
Okay, yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen the ecosystem builder job posting. So having a catalog of job postings is probably a stretch at this point.
Yeah.
But if we could get a few more job descriptions that are appropriate, that might be helpful.
Carol, Avery.
And Hassan, on the job posting piece, and my apologies for the background noise, there's a company called Join Monday, MONDAY, that is running an impact-focused job board site. Like, there are groups that have already built these things, and I think it's just a matter of finding the right partner. Maybe that's even Indeed, right? Like, maybe it is one of the existing really big ones. And it's just about getting adoption of a tag versus creating yet another repository of job listings.
And do I remember from, it was either maybe our last call or perhaps the one before that, that we talked about trying to compile some of the lingo that's used, various job titles that often include many of the responsibilities and tasks, and to kind of, is that actually what the catalog is about? Is it about the various job titles to be on the alert for that could fit the domain, or is the catalog something else?
I do remember we talked about on one of the calls about identifying different jobs that are different titles that are used to describe the same job. I'm not sure if that has materialized, but if there's anyone that wants to take a stab at it or has any ideas.
I thought we talked about a survey or a big board where at the summit coming up, didn't we? My impression was
that was what we said, Carol, when we were at the ESHIP Champions Retreat, I think, and we were doing the order of operations analysis with Jeff and Jackie. One of the ideas was a big board at the event itself to kind of crowdsource different job titles, either existing job titles that people have where they're ecosystem builders or ones they've seen.
So I don't
it
remember.
seems like that would be easier to engage than the idea of getting people to do an online survey.
So I don't remember if it was just inferred that maybe Cecilia and Christine would take that on as an action item as part of the summit planning team, because I didn't hear that anybody in our group volunteered to help or had, was in the right position to help with making that happen. The conversation.
Well, and I think that's the question of connecting with the Value Web team and making sure that all the ideas that got brainstormed like that actually have a home during the summit.
And Carol, we have a call, and I know the folks at Kaufman and Value Web are working on the design of the summit now, and we have a call coming up as a check-in to go over some of the ideas and to see where we're at on those. So we can touch on that during the call and see if that's still a viable option for the summit, and just check in on if it is, where it's at.
Is there any disagreement that it's an essential step soon versus something that can be done in a year?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of disagreement. I think just in terms of the amount of time that's available at the summit and what has to be accomplished at the summit is just basically figuring out what will get done at the summit and what makes sense to do at the summit based on all of the different things that need to be done. So I'm sure in one form or another it'll get addressed, and it's possible it could be at the summit, but we'll find out during that call. Anything else?
Is there a way outside of our group to call for the additional job descriptions that we touched on a couple minutes ago that we might want to see submitted and roll up or consider a post as variations? Is there a way to contact a broader group besides just the 3 or 4 of us in order to do an outreach query to get some submissions? Sure. Was it Beth that said you'd like more job descriptions, or was it Avery? I don't know whose voice it was that said a bit ago that we might maybe wanted to do that, get more job descriptions coming in.
Yeah, that was me, I think. And again, when you think about the big picture and you look at SourceLink and others that are working with the IEC for certification for ecosystem builders, do they want the broader job description from a systemic perspective where there are other people that are ecosystem builders, but they're coming at it from a different direction? I don't know how urgent that is. I don't know what makes the most sense, and there's no hierarchy of things, but things are going to fall into place in a certain order at some point. So I don't know the answer is the short story, I guess.
And I know on Slack, Samantha, who had joined on other calls, had shared a PDF on credentialing entrepreneurs.
Where is that?
That was shared on Slack. I'd have to check and see which channel that was shared to it. And Norris also, I think, shared something about Ecosystem U. And that was also on Slack.
On the general ESHIP channel, probably?
It's possible. I can.
It's okay. I'll look.
Yeah, I'll check it after we're off the call, and then I'll send something out.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other ideas about the initiatives or anything at all on regarding sustainability that you're working on in your neck of the woods?
I will say that Erie folks in economic development are deploying this fundraising strategy around the broader economic development vision for the next 5 years. And they're raising about, I think, 5.2 or 3 million, and entrepreneurial development is a piece of that, but we're very early on. So I don't know what that really means. I'm trying, I'm working with them and giving them input as far as the entrepreneurial side of things, but it's probably going to be 6 to 12 months before we know what that really looks like.
Avery, I know you travel a lot nationally and internationally. Is there anything that you've seen, like in your travels in different ecosystems, that you think would be helpful for this group to be aware of, or any models that you've seen that you think like have impressed you?
Yeah, I would say that particularly in Europe, it feels like there has been more public support for the role of ecosystem builder, whether you call that a network coordinator or membership director, or but somebody who is doing that work of playing the role of connector. It has felt like they are a little ahead of us in terms of making the argument that that is a valuable and necessary role to resource. I think that Asia is actually further behind than we are in terms of seeing and valuing that role, that it is kind of less mature in some ways. I see, for example, accelerators there struggle a great deal in terms of defining their value propositions and finding ways to have financial sustainability. And so, yeah, so I'd say the U.S. is kind of somewhere in the middle in some ways, and that there's some places where it feels like we've got it a little more figured out with things like accelerators and incubators. I think there's a maturity that's happening in the ecosystem here that's a significant step forward. But to the point of kind of what Carol was sharing earlier in terms of the the economic development agencies actually recognizing this work and this role, it feels like we still have a long way to go.
And do you see any correlation at all, because different countries obviously operate differently, but between decentralized systems and centralized systems, any correlation at all between like successful ecosystems and
I mean, yeah, I guess in some ways, because a lot of the places where I see this lagging further behind also tend to be developing countries where even just the basic infrastructure ecosystem isn't in place, right? It's not just the human infrastructure piece; it's even the physical layer that's lacking. So I think that there is some parallel there in terms of level of development and maturity of the ecosystems themselves.
One of the things, so when we were in DC on the advocacy trip, I talked to a few people, and some of the feedback I got, we talk about sustainability, like one of the first steps is recognition of this being a field. So some of the people that I talked to had, and this isn't unique to people outside of this field, it's even people within my community here, like when you say ecosystem, there's still people that do not understand what you're talking about. Like on a basic level, like there's an explanation that has to happen. You have to describe exactly what it is that you're talking about. So that has to be, and I know we've talked about this on other calls, but that's I think one of the first steps that we have to hit on is, the words that we use, the lexicon, and then getting buy-in from people to understand that this is, and again, that goes to a lot of the job descriptions that have different titles but mean the same thing, because there are a lot of people that are doing ecosystem building. There are ecosystem builders in many communities, but they're not called that. And I think once we establish that, hey, you're already doing this, I think it becomes easier for people to buy in to what we're doing. that's agreement.
Well, it's agreement, and I think that's part of what's going to be really enlightening about aggregating kind of even just the job description titles, right? Because it's highly likely that people have been calling this work other language, and that's language that they're more comfortable with. Because ecosystem building is a new trend, right? It is kind of this like, oh, biomimicry, like let's learn from ecosystem development in nature, but that's really new. And so I'm curious as we hear about what other job descriptions people or job titles that people put out, have they just been calling it something else? And that maybe we're even better served by continuing to use or at least correlating to previous language.
Yeah, because in my mind, anyone that is working to support the success of entrepreneurs, ecosystem building should be part of their duties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're at the SBDC or at the accelerator or incubator or university or makerspace or library, part of their duty should be building the ecosystem in addition to the expertise they provide as maybe the financial guru at the Small Business Development Center.
And I'm looking at Initiative 7.6, which is the ecosystem building book list. So is everyone aware of, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you, is everybody aware of the website that Jeff launched, Ecosystem Builders Hub, where he sources different articles and information? Some of it is external material that's sourced from other sources. Some of it is stuff that's created, but there are articles that he links to. So that, I mean, that information is like, so I've signed up for that and I get the updates, and it's just really valuable information.
What's the URL on his site?
I have to look it up. It's Ecosystem Builders Hub, EB Hub.
So is there a dot something at the end?
Yeah, I can, I'll have to look it up and I can send you that, Carol.
Okay, well, I hate to make this,
I'll get it for you in just a second.
I can go to Jeff's LinkedIn profile. It might be that he's got it there as his website in his contact info. Let me take a look.
Thanks, Avery.
Yeah, Carol, I have it. My internet's just being slow, so as soon as I grab it, I'll pop it in the Sustainable Works Slack channel.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? What? I heard the background noise. I wasn't sure I got all your...
My apologies. This is Avery. I have the website. My internet's just being slow, so as soon as I can grab it, I will toss it in the Sustainable Works Slack channel.
Great, thanks. Good.
And does anybody else have any ideas about any of the other initiatives or anything else that you want to share?
So when we were supposed, I have a question overall. You know, when we've been moving toward investable briefs, do we know what how we're going to activate into the investable mode on all of this?
So I think
yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things, and can't recall if it was Cecilia or if it's Andy that says this, but it's not so much a sprint to the summit. It's a marathon. So we're looking at this as not, we have to have all this work done by the summit. Like this is ongoing work. So all of this stuff does not have to be done, you know, within the next couple weeks. So this is ongoing work. And some of it will continue after the summit, if that makes sense.
So process-wise, so that suggests maybe a series of presentations, and maybe presentation is too formal a concept, but some kind of a series of projects that I'm just trying to figure out how they get reviewed in a way by someone who would be the source of the investable, the funding. Whether it's our national partners or whether it's some other network, it's just never been quite clear to me what the next steps might be as we develop these items and get them into investable shape. What then's going to happen, and under whose tutelage is something going to happen? Has that been defined by the champions or by anyone yet as to kind of where it goes next?
So are you asking, once all of these initiatives are funding ready, what's the criteria that'll be used to determine how the funding gets to where it ends up?
Yeah, keying off of your statement that it's a marathon, not a sprint, so that maybe some things are ready before others, or that sort of suggests to me that maybe some items are ready to pop before others. And do they all just get parked until everything's ready, or do they get released to some universe of folks who have the moolah to start getting some things happen? Is any process been defined about what happens as the development completes and we try to move into the delivery mode?
Well, I'm sure there are probably a couple of different scenarios that are possible outcomes. I don't think there is one scenario that's been identified as this is how the process will work. That's still, I would say, in development, and that's something that we would have to, once we get closer to the summit, and once the initiative, there are additional briefs that are added, I think then that will become clear. And I'm sure that probably some of the initiatives and goals will be funding ready before others.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we're at the point right now where we're looking at initiatives and goals and saying this is funding ready and this is how it's going to happen. I don't think we're quite there yet. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds. I just wasn't sure if anything was because I've only got a view to the two goal groups that I'm part of, and I didn't know if any of the other goal groups were maybe further along with initiatives that were indeed ready, and that some kind of presentation process was going to begin that could open the gates to the moolah.
Yeah, I think some of the goals are more developed than others. So they're all at different stages. They're not at the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Beth, anything you want to add to that? Because you've been involved on other calls as well.
Sure. No, I think it's for now, the ESHIP goals email Christine and Celia, I assume, are inventorying these things, and the ESHIP champions, I think, in the coming days are going to work together to help prioritize those things and help learn to understand what we've got. But again, I don't think those are things that are required for the summit. Maybe there will be a few that are highlighted. But as long as I'm copying or sharing with the ESHIP goals email, I'm comfortable.
So I think we're probably at about 35 minutes in, and I know there aren't that many people on the call, so if we don't need to go a full hour, I don't think we absolutely need to. Is there anything else that anyone wants to offer or wants to talk about?
One offer I have is I booked an Airbnb for the summit, and I have one more free bedroom, and it's $150 total for the 4 days. So if anybody's looking for a place to stay, I've got an extra bedroom.
Thank you, Avery.
Avery, yeah, I'll check with David. I'm not sure where he's going with it, but I'm definitely up for a room. So.
Yeah, I was talking to David too, and he was going to be charging $600 for the 4 days, and I was like, yeah, it's not that expensive. So I found a nice one that has like a hot tub and a pool and really beautiful view and is walking distance to the venue.
I'm in.
Awesome. That's sweet. I'll follow up with you separately then.
I don't even know
Yes.
off the list then. What else? Christine, it looks like Christine's on.
Is this our last call before the summit in 4 weeks?
Good question.
I think I think the call will actually happen the week of the summit. So yeah, I think this might be it.
Yeah, I have us down for Monday the 27th. The Monday after is what's on my calendar for our next Goal 7 call. So do we convene? When the schedule has collaboration groups on the schedule, is at least one of those time slots likely to be for each goal group to be able to get together in person? Do we know?
I think the schedule for the summit is still being worked out. So what is going to happen during those time slots, I don't think that's quite been worked out. Are you asking if that'll remain open for the different groups to get together during their normal time?
Yeah, when I printed out the schedule such as it's posted on the website. I printed it out this morning and just noticed we had a couple of time slots, I think, that were listed for collaboration groups, and I didn't know if that was code for goal groups or whether there was going to be some other accommodation or time slot for the goal groups to individually convene. Some of us are in multiple groups, so that makes this a little challenging. If all the groups get to meet at the same time, then that splits some of us in half, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you on that, Carol. But I would say there's more to come on that. That'll be clarified soon, but I don't have an answer for you right now.
So is there anything our goal group should be thinking about getting from or doing or accomplishing at the summit itself to have a summit-driven goal of some sort, either internal or whatever?
I think between now and the summit, if there's any additional work that can be done on any of the initiatives, anything added to the briefs, I think that would be very helpful, and then it would help us determine what we can do at the summit. Avery, anything else?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay, cool. Beth?
I'm good too.
Good. Carol, do you have anything else do you want to add?
No, not that I can think of at this moment.
Okay, so I think Avery said that she would.
Thank you, Hassan, for leading the call today. Really appreciate it. And I put the link on the Slack channel. It's just ecosystembuildershub.com.
Thank you. Thanks, Avery.
And Hassan, if you're the administrator of that, can you add me to that Slack channel?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Take care.
See you guys in Kansas City.
You
Take
too.
care, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Bye.